with people that you love. And as sports fans, we're going to get through this thing together. And today, I am telling you, we are jam-packed. We have an enormous amount of sports news. Let's start by getting up and going around the world of sports. And it starts in the NFL, where yesterday, Roger Goodell sent a memo to all 32 teams confirming that the draft will go on as scheduled at the end of April. Goodell said the NFL Management Council Executive Committee was, quote, unanimous and unequivocal that the draft should go forward as scheduled. He also warned against publicly criticizing the league for doing that. In the memo, he wrote in part, public discussion of issues relating to the draft serves no useful purpose and is grounds for disciplinary action. Everyone recognizes that the public health conditions are highly uncertain and there is no assurance that we can select a different date and be confident that conditions will be significantly more favorable than they are today. I also believe the draft can serve a very positive purpose for our clubs, our fans, and the country at large, and many of you have agreed. So that's the latest there. Elsewhere, baseball. Major League Baseball and its Players Association struck a deal last night on key economic issues as they hope to salvage their season. It covers salary advances, shortening the draft, and maybe most importantly, guaranteeing full service time even if the entire season gets canceled. Jeff Passan explained it all last night with Scott Van Pelt.
If there are no games played this year, then Mookie Betts is still going to be a free agent this offseason. And Trevor Bauer, Marcus Stroman, JT Realmuto, big-name guys who could have missed out on a year and had their free agency delayed by a year, they're going to be out on the market. And this was a big concession from owners, but one that they wanted to make because they understood if Major League Baseball is seen as the sport that is bickering amid this crisis, it is a terrible, terrible look.
That's a big deal from baseball. We get up and go to golf. The New York Post reports the U.S. Open, set for Winged Foot, is now going to be the third major to be postponed. The hope is that the suburban New York club can still host the event late this summer. The Open had been scheduled for June 18th through the 21st. To auto racing, the Indy 500 postponed until August 23rd, 3 months later than its originally scheduled date of May 24th. It will be the first time the Indy 500 won't run over Memorial Day weekend since 1946. And the NBA is reducing base salaries of approximately 100 of the league's top-earning executives by 20%. Many of those impacted work in the headquarters in New York, including that man, the face that you know, that of the commissioner, Adam Silver. And then finally, back to football, and this is big. Buccaneers head coach Bruce Arians has put to rest any idea that Antonio Brown will join Tom Brady in Tampa. He was on the radio.com show Tiki and Tierney yesterday. Arians made it clear Antonio Brown is not in the Buccaneers' future.
What's the likelihood AB gets back in Tampa?
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
There you go.
Not going to happen. There's no room.
Yeah.
And probably not enough money, but it's just not going to happen. It's not a fit here.
If he says, I'm coming in on the veteran minimum, coach, I just want to play with Tom, you still wouldn't find a way to get him in?
No.
Is it just because you don't trust what he could do to the culture? Why so steadfast that you would not give it a chance?
Yeah, I just know him, and it's not a fit in our locker room.
Wow. So that is a door shut as we open the door to two of our best. Booger McFarland and Bobby Carpenter are with me for this hour. It's great to see both of you guys. And Bobby, I'm going to start with you. For Bruce Arians to be so definitive in shutting the door that way, why do you think he made those comments?
Well, number one, Bruce Arians, Greeny, he knows Antonio Brown. He was on the Steelers. He was their offensive coordinator back in 2010 when they drafted him. He helped shepherd him to one of his most successful careers seasons early on in 2011 that catapulted his career. So he knows this guy. He knows what he's about. And to say that he's not a fit in the offense is one thing. To say that it wouldn't work monetarily is another thing. To say that he doesn't fit in the locker room or he's not a culture fit, that is completely different. And I'm surprised that Bruce Arians went there because that is completely slamming the door on Antonio Brown ever becoming a Buccaneer, in my opinion.
Me too. And Booger, I share Bobby's surprise that he would be this definitive. I think most of us believe Brady liked playing with Antonio Brown, and that was a good fit. We only saw them on the field together once, but it was very effective. What do you think of this?
Well, Greeny, I agree with you. And when I get new information, I'm allowed to change my opinion. And right now, there is no new information on Antonio Brown. We don't know what his situation is going to be with the NFL. So Bruce Arians understands it's going to be a circus in Tampa whenever the league gets back going. So why add to it? Go ahead and squash the Antonio Brown situation for now. Do I think it's dead in the end? Not necessarily, because right now he doesn't have to say anything positive or negative or anything at all about Antonio Brown. He just has to right now control the narrative. And the narrative in Tampa, when they get back on the field, it's going to be a lot of hoopla. So why add to it with comments that would lead the public to believe that you somehow want Antonio Brown? So I agree with what he did, but I wouldn't say it's dead after all.
Well, let me push back on that a little, because he could have said almost nothing, but he didn't. I wrote down the words, not a fit, definitively no, not in our locker room. I mean, he to your point, Booger, he didn't have to say those things, and he chose to. He really felt like he was slamming the door shut.
Yeah, and I understand what he's doing right now, because he doesn't want to continue to get asked the same question over and over. If, when, maybe, how. You go ahead and you slam the door now. But Greeny, how many times in sports have we seen someone say unequivocally no, and then come back on the back end and say, yeah, something came out and we changed our mind? So I'm not calling Bruce Arians a liar by any means. All I'm saying, let's sit back and see how this plays out, because we know Tom Brady likes Antonio Brown, and at some point, I think we all agree, if the commissioner suspends Antonio Brown and he gets reinstated at some point toward the end of the season, he's still a good wide receiver, and he's going to play at some point. Why not in Tampa? Maybe somewhere else, but I do think he'll be on the field if he's eligible to play.
Quickly, Bobby, let's talk about fit. We know they have two really good receivers in Tampa, and we know what Brady is. How would Brown fit there? What would his role be?
I think they probably slide him into the slot. Tom likes smaller wide receivers. He wants a guy that can maybe move around a little bit, like Edelman, like Wes Welker, utilize him over the middle. But I just look at this, when you keep going back to culture fit, not that he wasn't eligible, wasn't money, it wasn't any of those other things. It was a culture fit. To me, that's saying we like where our team's at and we don't want to disrupt this locker room.
Yeah, so we'll see. I guess, Booger, I will concede you this. He reserves the right to change his mind, and maybe eventually he does. For the moment, Bruce Arians has said Antonio Brown's not coming to Tampa. Let's work our way to Dallas, where the Cowboys are continuing their contract negotiations with Dak Prescott. Our Ed Werder yesterday tweeted that a source would not describe a contract resolution as close, but that discussions are not contentious, and that when it's all said and done, Prescott will emerge as the NFL's highest paid player. And here he is, the aforementioned Ed Werder, who's with us live here. Ed, how did we get to this point where now Dak Prescott is going to become the highest paid player in the football history?
Yeah, I think a lot of people have that question, Green. And let's put this into some kind of context. First of all, Russell Wilson has the highest average in the league at $35 million a year. Jared Goff has the most guaranteed money in his contract at $110 million. Prescott, I think, can challenge those numbers because he's won games while making 64 consecutive starts, and he's created leverage by playing out his rookie contract, having the best statistical season of his career, and forcing the Cowboys to use the franchise tag on a quarterback for the first time in their history. Look, the Cowboys couldn't contend for a Super Bowl with Prescott counting $2 million on their cap last year. They certainly don't want to attempt that with him counting nearly $30 million or more while playing on annual franchise tags. It's just not a good solution for the Cowboys. They are going to have to reach terms with Dak Prescott on a multi-year deal. And I think the other thing that happened here, really to the detriment of Prescott after all the leverage it created, Greeny, was the fact that the NFL compressed the offseason. The only known deadline they face now is the July 15th deadline for franchise tag players to sign multi-year contracts. Otherwise, I think this deal would have gotten done before April 6th, because that's when the Cowboys, with a new head coach, would have been allowed to start off-season training camp and practices. Now that goes away, so there's no drop-dead deadline like there would have been in 2 weeks from now. So it could go on for a little bit longer. As you said, I don't understand it to be terribly close, but I think Dak Prescott's going to emerge as potentially the highest paid quarterback in football.
That's remarkable. That's so well done. Ed Werder, thank you very much. And as I bring Bobby and Booger back into this conversation, Hembo sent me the notes. So I'm just going to read you the names quickly of who has been the highest paid player in the NFL every year going back to 2010. It was Aaron Rodgers, then it was Joe Flacco, then it was Andrew Luck, then it was Derek Carr, Matt Stafford, Jimmy Garoppolo, Kirk Cousins, Matt Ryan, Aaron Rodgers again. Now it's Russell Wilson. Booger, there's a trend here. It's just whichever quarterback is next in line winds up getting the biggest contract. Is that the way to explain how Dak Prescott, who happens to be the next in line, is going to be the highest paid player when he gets this deal in NFL history?
Well, Greeny, that's one way to explain it. I think all the quarterbacks want to continue to kick the can down the road. If you're next in line, you're going to become paid just a little bit more than the last guy. But also, I think if you look at Tom Brady and Drew Brees, look at their first 4 years of their career, and then look at Dak Prescott's numbers. I think from a comparative standpoint, the numbers are comparatively there, so you can start to see a trend of what Dak Prescott may be eventually. Now, is he going to go to 9 Super Bowls and win 6? I'm not saying that, but if we're just going to look at past performance and try to predict what he could be in the future, the numbers between Brady, Brees, and Prescott, they compare pretty good the first 4 years of their career.
And Bobby, let me ask you this, because I feel like you and I have talked about Dak's deal forever, and you are a former Cowboy. It feels to me like Jerry Jones has misplayed this terribly. This was a deal he could have gotten done a long time ago if he wanted to for a lot less money. He sort of put himself behind the 8 ball with the way he, in my view, mishandled the Zeke Elliott situation, the deals he chose to make and the ones he chose to wait on. So now he's going to wind up paying Dak Prescott a lot more money than he probably had to. Do you see it similarly?
They probably should have gotten this deal done first. The problem was last season, Zeke forced the issue, and then they had to get Amari Cooper done. They had all these other guys coming up right at the same time. And when your quarterback's the most important, he's the guy you need to take advantage of and get paid early and get that taken care of right away. And our good friend Dan Orlovsky's talked about it. Teams get in trouble when you play good players, great money. And I think that that's the issue with the Cowboys. Not that Dak's not really, really good. But the problem is if you pay him the highest dollar amount for any player in NFL history, you're expecting him to then play like the best quarterback, because how that's going to impact your salary cap. When in reality, he's probably somewhere between 4 and 10, and that's not a bad thing. But the problem is they waited on this. Now Dak has all the leverage. They have to tag him if they, moving forward if they don't get a deal done. And that's no way to handle the best player on your roster.
Booger, really quickly, I've been asking this question to everyone I've had on. When you look